The big room was full of angry voices. Jake Morrison sat alone at the human table and watched the aliens argue about his people. He had been listening to the same complaints for months now. The aliens wanted to control humans. They wanted to tell them where they could go and what they could do. The room was huge and round with seats going up in circles like a stadium. Each alien species had their own section. The blue fish-like aquarians sat in water tanks on one side. The bug-like Zeltharians clicked and buzzed on the other side. The tall gray Etherians floated in the middle, their bodies see-through like ghosts. Jake was tired of it all. He was 52 years old and had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years. He had seen enough alien politics to last a lifetime. Today felt different, though. Today he was done being polite. High Counselor Vextar stood up from the Zeltharian section. He was 8 feet tall with 4 arms and looked like a giant praying mantis. His voice came out as clicks and whistles, but the translator made it sound angry in English. "The humans are dangerous," Vextar said. "They build too many ships. They take too many planets. They do not follow our rules." The other aliens nodded and made their own noises of agreement. Jake had heard this speech before. It was always the same. Humans were too aggressive. Humans were too unpredictable. Humans needed to be controlled. An Aquarian delegate spoke next. Her name was something Jake could not pronounce, so he just called her Blue Lady in his head. She lived in a water tank and spoke through a water-filled mask. "We have been peaceful for 1,000 years, Blue Lady said. The humans will ruin everything. They fight too much. They expand too fast. They must be stopped." More aliens spoke up. The crystalline people who looked like walking diamonds. The plant-like herbarians who never hurt anyone. The tiny insectoids who buzzed around in swarms. They all said the same thing. Humans were the problem. Jake looked around the room and counted the aliens. There were representatives from 47 different species. All of them were here to talk about controlling his people. All of them wanted to put humans in a cage. President Luminous floated in the center of the room. He was the leader of the Galactic Council and looked like a tall ghost made of light. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Ambassador Morrison," President Luminous said, "your people have been expanding for 20 years. You now have colonies on 63 worlds. Your military has 300 ships. This concerns the Council." Jake stood up slowly. He was not a tall man, but he was built strong like a farmer. His hair was gray, and his face was rough from years of dealing with difficult people. He looked around the room at all the aliens staring at him. "President Luminous," Jake said in a calm voice, "we have been talking for 6 months. 6 months of listening to complaints. 6 months of demands. 6 months of threats." The room got quiet. Even the buzzing insectoids stopped making noise. "You want us to limit our colonies to 20 worlds," Jake continued. "You want us to cut our fleet in half. You want us to ask permission before we explore new star systems. You want us to follow rules that nobody else has to follow." President Luminous's light got brighter. "The Council has concerns about human aggression. Your species has a history of violence." Jake laughed. It was not a happy laugh. "Violence? You want to talk about violence?" The Zeltharians conquered 12 species before joining the Council. The Aquarians wiped out an entire planet of land dwellers 200 years ago. The Crystalline Collective enslaved 3 different species and still uses them as workers. Vextar clicked angrily. That was different. That was before the Council brought peace. "Peace for who?" Jake asked. "Peace for you, because you already got what you wanted. Now you want to make sure nobody else can do the same thing." The aliens started talking all at once. Their voices mixed together in a loud mess of anger and fear. Jake waited for them to get quiet again. "Here's what I think is really happening," Jake said. "You're scared. You're scared because humans don't act like other species. We don't ask permission. We don't wait for approval. We see something we want, and we go get it." Blue Lady spoke up from her water tank. "That is exactly why you must be controlled. You are unpredictable." Jake smiled. It was not a nice smile. "You know what? You're right. We are unpredictable, which is why you should have seen this coming." He reached down and picked up his briefcase. Inside were all his papers and computer files. Everything he needed to do his job as Earth's ambassador. He closed the briefcase with a loud snap. "The United Earth Federation is done with these talks," Jake said. "We're done with your demands. We're done with your threats. We're done with your council." The room exploded in noise. Aliens jumped up from their seats. Some made angry noises. Others sounded scared. President Luminous's light flashed bright white. "Ambassador Morrison," President Luminous said in a loud voice, "you cannot simply leave. There are procedures. There are agreements." Jake was already walking toward the door. "There are no agreements. We never signed anything. We came here in good faith to talk. You wanted to put us in chains, so we're leaving." Vex Star clicked loudly. "If you leave, there will be consequences. The Council will not allow human expansion to continue unchecked." Jake stopped at the big doors that led out of the chamber. He turned around and looked at all the aliens one more time. "Let me make something clear," he said. "We're keeping our colonies, all 63 of them. We're keeping our fleet, all 300 ships. And we're going to keep expanding. We're going to build more colonies and more ships. We're going to explore more star systems. We're going to do whatever we want." The noise in the room got louder. Some aliens were shouting. Others were making alarm calls. The insectoids were buzzing so loud it hurt to listen. "And if you try to stop us," Jake said in a voice that cut through all the noise, "you're going to find out why every other species in the galaxy learned not to mess with humans." He walked through the doors, and they closed behind him with a soft sound. The noise from the chamber was cut off suddenly. Jake stood in the quiet hallway and took a deep breath. Behind him, he could hear the aliens still arguing and shouting. Their perfect, peaceful council was falling apart. They had tried to cage humans, and instead they had broken themselves. Jake smiled as he walked away. It was time to go home and tell Earth that the talking was over. Now the real work would begin. The news spread fast across the galaxy. Jake Morrison had walked out of the council chambers, and every alien government wanted to know what it meant. Emergency meetings started on dozens of worlds as leaders tried to figure out what humans would do next. On the Zeltharian homeworld of Zeth Prime, War Counselor Crichton stood before the military leaders in their great war room. The room was dark and filled with the clicking sounds of angry Zeltharians. Battle maps covered the walls, showing star systems and fleet positions. "The humans have shown their true nature," Crichton said. His forearms moved as he talked, pointing at the maps. "They reject peace and threaten to expand their territory. We must stop them before they become too strong." The other Zeltharian commanders clicked in agreement. General Vexva, an old warrior with scars across his shell, stepped forward. "How many ships do the humans have?" Vexva asked. "Our intelligence says 300 warships," Crichton replied. "But they are building more every day. If we wait too long, they will have too many to fight." "Then we attack now," another commander said. "We destroy their colonies before they can defend them." The Zeltharians began planning their war. They had fought many battles before joining the council. Fighting was what they did best. They would show the humans what happened to species that refused to follow council rules. Far across the galaxy on the water world of Aquaria, Similar meetings were happening. The blue fish-like people lived in great underwater cities. In the deepest city, Admiral Riva called together the fleet commanders. "The human threat is real," she said, her gills moving fast with worry. "They have colonies near our territory. If they keep expanding, they will take our worlds too." The Aquarian fleet was old but strong. They had ships that could fight underwater and in space. They had weapons that could boil the oceans of enemy worlds. They would not let humans threaten their peaceful way of life. "Ready the deep strike fleets," Admiral Riva ordered. "If the humans want war, we will give them one they will never forget." But not everyone in the galaxy was planning to fight humans. In the Outer Rim territories, far from Council space, Captain Lisa Webb was getting very different messages. Lisa was a human trader who ran cargo between the frontier colonies. Her ship was called the Wanderer, and she knew every outlaw station and free port in the Outer Rim. She was loading supplies at Haven's Rest when her communication system started buzzing with incoming messages. The first message was from Commander Torch, a Corvan mercenary she had worked with many times. The Corvans looked like bears, but were twice as big and covered in thick fur. They were strong fighters who sold their services to anyone who could pay. "Lisa," Torch's message said in his deep, growling voice, "heard about your people telling the Council to stuff it. About time someone had the guts to stand up to those control freaks. The free companies want to talk business with Earth." The free companies were groups of mercenaries, pirates, and traders who worked outside Council law. They had their own ships and stations scattered across the galaxy. The Council called them criminals, but they called themselves free. More messages came in from other groups. The Red Moon pirates wanted to trade weapons for human technology. The Titan Corporation offered to sell ships to human colonies. Even some small alien governments sent secret messages saying they supported human independence. Lisa smiled as she read the messages. She had always liked dealing with the free companies better than the stuffy Council species. They were honest about what they wanted, and they did not pretend to be better than everyone else. She sent a message back to Earth, telling them about all the support they were getting from the Outer Rim. The response came back fast. Earth wanted her to set up meetings with the free companies. They were interested in making new friends. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Helen Carter was dealing with her own crisis. The Oval Office was packed with military leaders and government officials, all talking at once. "Madam President," said Admiral Steve Davis, the head of Earth's space fleet, "we're getting reports of alien fleets moving toward our territory. The Zeltharians have activated their war fleets. The Aquarians are mobilizing their deep space forces." Defense Secretary Betty Collins stood up from her chair. She was a tough woman who had served in the military for 30 years before becoming a politician. "Our intelligence says at least 6 Council species are preparing for military action," she said. "They're going to try to force us back to the negotiating table." President Carter looked at the big display screen that showed the galaxy. Red dots marked Council fleets that were moving. Blue dots showed human colonies and ships. There were a lot more red dots than blue ones. "What about our colonial militias?" the president asked. "Every colony has confirmed they're ready to fight," Admiral Davis said. "The Mars Defense Force has 50 ships ready for battle. The Centauri colonies have been building weapons for months. They knew this day would come." General Rick Stone, the head of the Earth Defense Force, spoke up. "Our people are scared, but they're also angry. Nobody wants to give up their homes to alien bullies. If they want to fight, we'll give them one." President Carter studied the display for a long time. She was a small woman with gray hair, but she had iron in her voice when she made decisions. "Admiral Davis," she said finally, "begin full military mobilization. Activate all reserves. Speed." Up construction on every ship we're building. And send a message to all our colonies. What should the message say? Admiral Davis asked. Tell them the gloves are off, the president said. Tell them we're done being polite. Tell them it's time to show the galaxy what humans do when someone tries to push us around. Orders went. Out across human space. On Mars, factories that made civilian goods switched to making weapons. In the asteroid belt, miners started digging out metals for warships instead of trade goods. On Centauri, farmers put down their tools and picked up rifles. The humans were getting ready for war, but they were also getting ready for something else. Secret messages went out through hidden communication networks. Human traders, explorers, and colonists spread across the galaxy started talking to anyone who would listen. The message was simple. The council wanted to control everyone. They wanted to decide who could go where and who could do what. Humans were fighting for the right to be free. Anyone who wanted freedom was welcome to join them. In the outer rim, pirate captains heard the message and smiled. On small alien worlds, people who were tired of council rules started to listen. Even on some council worlds, there were groups who began to wonder if the humans might be right. The galaxy was choosing sides. The old order of the council was cracking. War was coming, but so was something else. Something that would change everything. The humans had ended the talks, and the council was falling into chaos. But out of that chaos, something new was being born. The first fight happened 3 weeks after Jake Morrison walked out of the council chambers. It started in the Kepler system, where humans had built a new mining colony on a rocky planet. The colony was small, but it had good metals that Earth needed for building ships. Captain Roy Patterson was flying his cargo ship, Lucky Strike, to the colony with supplies. Roy was 60 years old and had been hauling cargo for most of his life. He knew every trade route in human space, and he was not afraid of much. His ship looked like an old freighter, but it had hidden weapons and strong shields. Like most human ships in the frontier, Roy was almost to the colony when 4 Zeltharian warships appeared on his sensors. They were sleek and fast with weapons that could cut through most ship hulls. The lead ship sent him a message. Human vessel, stop your engines and prepare for inspection, the Zeltharian commander said. You are in council-regulated space and must follow our orders. Roy looked at his navigation computer. According to human maps, he was in the Kepler system, which belonged to Earth. According to council maps, this was disputed territory that they wanted to control. Negative, bug boys, Roy sent back. This is human space now. You're the ones who don't belong here. The Zeltharian commander did not like being called bug boy. His voice got angry when he replied. Human vessel, you will submit to inspection or face the consequences. Your people are no longer welcome in this system. Roy had been dealing with bullies his whole life. He knew that backing down just made them push harder. He also knew that his cargo ship was tougher than it looked. Come and try it, Roy said. The Zeltharian ships opened fire first. Bright energy beams shot across space and hit Roy's shields. The shields flared and held. Roy smiled and fired back. The Lucky Strike might have looked like a harmless cargo ship, but it packed military-grade weapons. Missiles launched from hidden tubes and energy cannons emerged from fake cargo pods. The Zeltharians had expected an easy target. Instead, they got a nasty surprise that the fight lasted 4 minutes. When it was over, 3 Zeltharian ships were floating debris. The 4th ship was badly damaged and running for home. Roy's ship had some scratches on the hull, but nothing serious. Roy sent a message to the human colony below. Alien jerks picked a fight with the wrong trucker, sending them home to Mama in pieces. Supply run continuing as planned. News of the fight spread fast through human space. Roy Patterson became famous overnight. Songs were written about the cargo captain who beat 4 warships. But more importantly, other humans learned that they could win fights against council ships. More battles started happening across the frontier. Human ships began shooting back when council forces tried to stop them. Human colonies fought off alien raiders. What surprised everyone was how well the humans worked together. Dr. Alan Stewart was a scientist who studied alien behavior. He had spent years watching how different species acted in war and peace. He was called to speak to an emergency council meeting about the human problem. "You do not understand humans," Dr. Stewart told the worried alien leaders. "You think they are disorganized because they argue with each other. You think they are weak because their governments are limited. But you are wrong." The council members made worried noises. President Luminous floated in the center, looking dim and tired. "Explain," President Luminous said. "Humans do not need central control to work together," Dr. Stewart said. "When they face an outside threat, they connect naturally. They share information freely. They help each other without being ordered to." "But how?" asked Blue Lady from her water tank. "They have no unified command, no central authority." Dr. Stewart smiled sadly. "They have something better. They have the Frontier Network." The aliens had heard rumors about the Frontier Network, but they did not understand what it was. Dr. Stewart explained that it was a hidden communication system that connected every human settlement, ship, and outpost. Information flowed freely between human groups, creating a web of knowledge and coordination. "Every human trader knows where council ships are moving," Dr. Stewart said. "Every human colony knows what weapons work best against alien armor. Every human captain knows which routes are safe and which are dangerous. They share everything." The council leaders realized they were not fighting individual human groups. They were fighting all of humanity at once. The council's response was to declare war. They announced that humans would be contained by force. Any human expansion beyond current territories would be stopped with military action. They gathered the largest fleet in galactic history to enforce their will. But the declaration of war had an unexpected result. Other species who were not part of the council began choosing sides. The free companies announced they supported human independence. The Corvan clans declared neutrality, but opened their space to human ships. Even some council member species began having second thoughts. The real test came when the council decided to attack the human colony of New Geneva. It was a strategic world that controlled several important trade routes. If they could take New Geneva, they could cut human space in half. The council sent 200 ships to destroy the colony. It was the largest military force assembled in decades. They expected to find a small human defense force that would surrender quickly. Captain Mike Torres commanded the human battleship Constitution at New Geneva. He was a career military officer who had fought pirates and raiders for 20 years. When his sensors detected the massive council fleet approaching, he was not worried. He was excited. "All ships, this is Torres," he broadcast to the defense fleet. "We've got company coming. Looks like about 200 alien ships who think they can push us around." The defense fleet was not just human ships. Corvan mercenaries had arrived to help. Free company pirates brought their best weapons. Even some alien species who were tired of council control sent ships to fight. When the council fleet arrived, they found 60 ships waiting for them. The council commander sent the usual demand for surrender. "Human vessels, you are outnumbered. More than 3 to 1. Surrender now and submit to council authority." Mike Torres laughed when he heard the message. His reply was broadcast across the galaxy by independent news networks. "Outnumbered? Commander, you apparently have not been paying attention. Humans do not surrender. We multiply the problems for anyone stupid enough to threaten us." The battle for New Geneva began with the Council fleet charging forward, expecting easy victory. Instead, they ran into a coordinated defense that used every dirty trick humans have learned in centuries of warfare. The fighting was brutal and lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Council fleet was running for home, having lost more than half their ships. The human-led defense force had taken damage, but they held the field. More importantly, the battle had been broadcast live across the galaxy. Species that had stayed neutral watched the mighty Council fleet get beaten by humans and their allies. The galaxy began to realize that the old order was changing, and humans were leading that change. The news of the Battle of New Geneva changed everything. A video of the Council fleet running away was shown on every independent news network in the galaxy. Species that had been afraid of the Council began to think maybe the powerful aliens were not so strong after all. Within days of the battle, 7 alien species announced they were leaving the Council. The Corvan clans signed a defense agreement with humanity. The free companies created the Outer Rim Alliance and invited humans to be founding members. Even some Council worlds began having riots as their people demanded freedom from Council control. The Council was falling apart. President Luminous called emergency meetings, but fewer and fewer species showed up. The Zeltharians wanted to keep fighting, but they had lost too many ships. The Aquarians retreated to their home waters and refused to send more fleets. The other Council species began making secret peace offers to human colonies. On Earth, President Helen Carter watched the reports coming in from across the galaxy. Her advisors were amazed at how fast the galactic order was changing. "Madam President," said Admiral Steve Davis, "we're getting requests for alliance from 43 different species. Everyone wants to join our side now." Defense Secretary Betty Collins was reading intelligence reports. The Council has lost control of most of Vol, the Outer Rim territories. Their own member species are starting to ignore their orders. President Carter smiled. It had been 1 year since Jake Morrison walked out of the Council chambers. In that time, everything had changed. Humans had gone from being threatened with containment to becoming the leaders of a new galactic alliance. "It's time to make this official," President Carter said. "Call a meeting of all our allies. We're going to create something new." The meeting was held on the neutral station of Haven's Rest in the Outer Rim. It was the same station where Captain Lisa Webb had first received messages of support from the free companies. Now it was packed with delegates from dozens of species who wanted to be part of the new order. The main conference room was huge, but it was still crowded. Human representatives sat next to Corvan warriors. Free company pirates shared tables with peaceful trade species. Even some former Council members had sent secret delegates. President Carter stood at the front of the room. She was a small woman, but her voice carried to every corner of the packed chamber. "Friends and allies," she began. "1 year ago, humanity was told to accept limits on our freedom. We were told to ask permission before exploring new worlds. We were told to cap our military and submit to alien oversight. We said no." The room erupted in cheers and alien equivalents of applause. Corvans roared approval. Free company captains banged their fists on tables. Even the quiet trade species made happy noises. "Today we announce the formation of the Terran Alliance Coalition," President Carter continued. "This is not like the old Council. Membership is voluntary. Any species can leave if they want to. No one species gets to boss around the others." The new organization's rules were simple. Members had to respect each other's territory and sovereignty. They had to help defend each other if attacked. But beyond that, each species could do whatever they wanted. No military limits. No expansion. Restrictions. No force technology sharing. Commander Torch of the Corvan clans stood up to speak. He was 8 feet tall and covered in thick fur. His voice was a deep growl that everyone could hear. "The Corvins have fought many wars," he said. "We have seen many empires rise and fall. But we have never seen anything like humans. You do not conquer others. You make them want to join you. This is true strength." Captain Lisa Webb was also at the meeting representing the human traders. She had become famous for setting up the first contacts with the free companies. When she spoke, her words were broadcast across the galaxy. The council wanted to control everyone, she said. They wanted to decide who could go where and who could do what. They forgot that free people will always find a way to be free. Humans just reminded them of that truth. Within 6 months, the Terran Alliance Coalition had grown to 60 member species. New species joined every week. They brought their own ships, their own technology, and their own ideas about how to live free. The old Galactic Council shrank to just 15 member species. Most of them were the original founding races who were too proud to admit they had been wrong. They still controlled some territory, but their influence was fading fast. President Luminous made one last attempt to contact President Carter. His message was broadcast on all networks so everyone could hear it. "President Carter," the ghostly alien said, "the Council is willing to negotiate new terms. We can discuss human membership under revised conditions." President Carter's reply was short and clear. "President Luminous, we tried talking once. You wanted to put us in a cage. Now we're free, and we're helping others get free too. The talking is over." The galaxy had learned something important about humans. They could be reasoned with, and they could be bargained with, but they could not be forced. Anyone who tried to control humans discovered that humans had a talent for causing problems for their enemies. Jake Morrison, the ambassador who had started it all, was named the first Secretary General of the Terran Alliance. In his acceptance speech, he said something that became famous across the galaxy. "The Council made one big mistake," Jake said. "They thought humans would eventually give up and accept their control like everyone else had. They did not understand that humans have a special word for people who try to force us into cages we do not want to be in. We call them enemies, and we have gotten very good at dealing with our enemies." 3 years after the diplomatic crisis began, human colonies numbered over 200. The human fleet had grown to over 1,000 ships. But more importantly, humans had created something new in the galaxy. They had built an alliance based on freedom instead of control. The Terran Alliance became the largest political organization in galactic history. It included species from every part of known space. They traded freely, explored together, and defended each other. Most importantly, they did it all by choice. The old Galactic Council still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. They controlled a small part of the galaxy and spent most of their time arguing among themselves about whose fault it was that they had lost their power. Sometimes young aliens would ask their elders how the mighty council had fallen so fast. The answer was always the same. They had tried to control humans, and humans had refused to be controlled. In trying to cage humanity, they had destroyed themselves and created something better. The galaxy was free because humans had chosen to be free and had helped others choose freedom too. The council had fallen into chaos because they forgot that free people will always find a way to stay free.